Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin, and today I have a very exciting video. Last time I talked about Sarah Dessen's newest books, and that kind of got me thinking, and I realized that I have read every single one of Sarah Dessen's books. All 14 of them. I don't own all 14 of them, but I have read them. And so I thought, who better than yours truly to make a definitive ranking of all of the books. Obviously it's just my opinion, but I thought that would be fun to do. Rank Sarah Dessen's books from worst to best, according to me. Okay, so let's get started. First book at the very bottom of the list I have is That Summer. This book I read a long time ago, and to be honest, I don't remember a whole lot, except for I remember thinking that it wasn't really made for adults or for teenagers. It was seems like it appealed to a younger demographic. It seemed like it wasn't really a YA book, and I remember it was really short, and I didn't really have enough time to get attached to the characters very much. Okay, number 13 on the list is What Happened to Goodbye. This is one of Sarah Dessen's newer books, and it's one of the books that I didn't love as much. I remember reading it when I was a senior in high school, and while it was enjoyable read, I remember it was very forgettable, and the characters were not very memorable characters, and I thought it didn't have the same magic that her other books did. Okay, number 12 in my opinion is this one. It's called The Moon and More. I remember my husband actually bought this book for me when we were dating. It was like one of our first dates. We were at the bookstore and I saw the new Sarah Dessen book and I thought, oh, I want that. And he was like, okay, and so he bought it for me, and I'm glad he did. He's very sweet, but unfortunately, it's not my favorite Sarah Dessen book. You can tell with her newer ones that they don't have the same pizzazz that her older ones did. They don't deal with as heavy material, they don't deal with as more complex characters as she does in her older ones. And it's just overall just kind of disappointing, I'll be honest. Alright, number 11, Saint Anything. Again, because this is one of Sarah Dessen's newer books, I didn't like it as much. I felt like it had a good premise, and I feel like it had promise. However, I think in execution, it was, like the other ones I said, just kind of forgettable. And I've read this once, and I've never found myself reaching for it again, just because I have no desire to. I have no connection with these characters. I have no personal attachment to the story at all. So that's why this one is at number 11. Alright, number 10 is Keeping the Moon. Keeping the Moon is surprisingly a fan favorite. And I do like it. I have actually read it a few times. I don't actually hate any Sarah Dessen book, just for reference, so it was really hard to make this list. Let's just say that the number one is really number one. And this one, they're all close, but this one, I feel like it was just too short. Like, this one is her shortest book, except for maybe That Summer, but I don't own that one, so I'm not going to look up how many pages it is. But this one's only 228 pages, which, for the amount of story that she's trying to give you, I feel like is not enough time to develop the characters and develop a relationship with the characters. So, not my favorite book. Okay, number 9. I don't own this one. Number 9 is Dreamland. This one, I feel like, was very well written. I feel like it's a very important book, and I feel like it does deal with extremely heavy themes that are good to read about. However, I feel like because of that, it's actually really hard to read. And it's so different from all of Sarah Dessen's other books that I find myself not actually enjoying it as much, which is really unfortunate because it does tell a very important story. So if you like that kind of thing, read that one. But for purposes of this list, I'm not going off of like critic reviews, I'm going off purely of how well did I enjoy them? Did I enjoy reading them or not? So that's why that one is so low. Alright, number 8, and I feel like people are going to get mad at me for this one because this is probably her people's favorite book out of hers, is Someone Like You. Someone Like You is one of the first books I read by her. And I do like it. I like it a lot. But I don't know. Compared to the other ones on the list, I feel like I didn't get attached to the characters the same way or really care about their stories the same way. And I feel like the love story in this one is not comparable to the other books. I feel like the secondary character, the one who actually gets pregnant in this book, has more of a story than the actual main character, which I think is unfortunate. But that's the way it goes. Number 7 is Once and For All. This one received very mixed reviews when it came out, and I was a little bit hesitant to read it, but because I'm such a loyal Sarah Dessen fan, I went out and bought it anyway because I'm weak, and I actually ended up really enjoying this. I can understand why people might not like it. It does deal with some really heavy material that I feel like she could have written a little bit better. However, I thought this one was a lot of fun. I really like the love story in it, and although the love story got wacky, for a lack of a better word, at the end of the book, I feel like it was a very enjoyable, fun read. So I like that one. Alright, number 6, The Rest of the Story. I know, you might be surprised. This clocked it at number 6. I was surprised too. This is her newest book, and if you want to see the full review for that, I'll link it to this video. So go ahead and watch that. But I was pleasantly surprised by this book. Like I said in my review, I think this is her best book since Along for the Ride, which is surprising. But it's a lot of fun, the romance is good, it's really fun. Okay, so now we're getting into the top 5. So I'll spend a little bit more time explaining why they're my top 5. And these books were really hard to choose the top 5 because they're all so neck and neck. So, let's talk about it. Number 5. This Lullaby. This Lullaby is a story about Remy, who is a girl whose mother is getting married for the 5th time, I think. So because of that, she feels like she doesn't really believe in love. And after her father leaves her family, and the only thing he leaves is a song because he's a famous musician, and that's all she has left of him. And her mom is a romance writer who can't fall in love for more than a year at a time. Remy is very skeptical about relationships. And then she meets Dexter, who is arguably, I think, one of the best love interests Sarah Dessen has ever written. He is absolutely wacky, he is funny, he is crazy, and he is exactly what Remy needs. He helps her loosen up and just kind of take life day at a time instead of trying to think about the long future forever, and helps her believe in love. Sounds cheesy, I know, but I mean, it's a Sarah Dessen book, so of course it's cheesy. But this one's really fun, and I love it, and it's good. Okay, moving on. Number 4 is Along for the Ride. I love this book. This is the story of a girl named Auden. She spends the summer, before her senior year, she spends the summer with her dad and his new wife and their new baby in a little beach town. And Auden she didn't have a childhood, for lack of a better phrase. She was raised by her mother, who is scholarly and academically, and because of that, Auden is scholarly and loves academics, and there's nothing wrong with that, but she realizes that she didn't have a childhood. And while she's there, she meets a boy named Eli, who takes her on a quest. He calls it a quest to recapture her childhood, which includes teaching her how to ride a bike. This one, I think, is so romantic, and it's so fun, and I love it. Number 3. Just Listen. Just Listen. This is a heavy book. There's a lot of triggers in this book, so if eating disorders and issues of rape are triggering to you, I would suggest skip this one. but I think Sarah Dessen writes this one absolutely beautifully. So this is a story about Annabelle, who is a kind of reluctant model at this point because from the pressure from her mother. And she returns to school after the summer to find that everybody is against her and hating her and talking behind her back because of something that happened at a party before summer began. So there's a story of that, and she makes friends with another outcast named Owen, who runs his own music show on the radio, and he likes music that is the most weirdest music in the world. And he kind of befriends Annabelle, and of course they fall in love, and he kind of teaches her not to judge music at first, and not to judge people at first, and not to judge circumstances. And it's a beautiful story. I think Sarah Dessen deals with the heavier subjects beautifully, which is why my top 3 are kind of heavier books, which is funny because Dreamland is really heavy, but Dreamland is also, the tone is just kind of depressing. Well, these ones are a good mixture of humor, love, and kind of overcoming heavy things. It can be told with a little bit more humor. So this is my number 3. Okay. Number 2 is Lock and Key. You can see my number. There we go. Number 2 is Lock and Key. But this is the story of Ruby, who is a 17-year-old girl who got abandoned by her mother. And so she was living alone before Child Protective Services discovered that she was living alone and put her in with her sister, who she hasn't seen in years, and her husband. And this is a big lifestyle change because Ruby, with her mother, her single mother, grew up poor, grew up troubled with drugs and alcohol and trying to cover up for her mom while her mom struggled with those things. And suddenly she's thrown into this house with her sister and her husband, who are, from the outside, seemingly perfect. They have good jobs, they have a good home life, and they're trying to provide Ruby with a good home life. And they enroll Ruby into this new elite school, and it's just hard for Ruby to adjust. And meanwhile, she meets the next door neighbor boy named Nate, who's seemingly the perfect all-American boy, and it's just a hard time for her, and I love it, and I think it's very well written. A+. Okay, if you haven't guessed it yet, my number 1 Sarah Dessen book is The Truth About Forever. You can tell, because this has been so worn out. It is falling apart, because I love it so much. For a long time, this was considered my number 1 favorite book. As of right now, I don't really have a number 1 favorite book, because for those of you who love reading know how hard it is to choose a number 1 favorite book, but this one is up there. This one is so good. So good. This is the story about a girl named Macy who watched her father pass away, and she was kind of known as that. Like around school and stuff, she was known as Macy Queen, the girl who watched her father die, and she was sick of like the sympathetic looks and the people not treating her the same. And because of that, and because she didn't want to fall apart in front of people, she decided that she needed a persona that was like perfect. So her personality is her trying to do everything perfect all the time. And with the help of that, she's got her perfect boyfriend, Jason, who the story takes place during the summertime when he goes away to a math camp and leaves her to cover for him for his job at the library and kind of leave her to her own devices. Of course, everything changes when she meets a catering company that caters one of her mother's open houses called Wish Catering, where she meets a whole bunch of wacky characters who kind of teach her that being not perfect is okay. In fact, making mistakes and grieving and showing your emotions is important. And of course, Wes is one of the caterers that she learns to fall in love with and spend time with, and there's so many good characters. I think that's what I like most about this book, is there are so many characters in this book that really make it. Like, Wes is probably one of the first book characters I ever truly had a total crush on, and Delia is such a great mother figure for Macy, and this whole story is so good about grieving and learning to be human. So I definitely recommend it for everybody if you're into these kind of books. Alright, so that is all of 14 Sarah Dessen novels ranked from my least favorite to my personal favorite. Do you guys agree with me? If not, please leave your comments down below telling me which ones you liked the best. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos like this, please hit subscribe. I would appreciate it so very muchly. Thanks and have a fantastic day.